The boxing world thrives on spectacle, rivalries, and the promise of blockbuster paydays, and few figures have stirred the pot quite like Jake Paul. The YouTuber-turned-boxer has carved out a polarizing niche in the sport, drawing attention not just for his in-ring performances but for his ability to generate headlines and pay-per-view buys. One of the most intriguing potential matchups on the horizon is a clash between Paul and Gervonta "Tank" Davis, a lightweight boxing phenom known for his devastating knockouts and electrifying presence. The idea of this fight has sparked heated debates, with fans, fighters, and analysts weighing in on whether it's a legitimate contest or just another stunt in Paul's quest for relevance. The road to this potential showdown is paved with drama, negotiations, and a series of events that have kept the boxing community buzzing. The saga began to take shape when Jake Paul, never one to shy away from confrontation, interrupted a press conference for Davis's fight against Roach Jr. in a moment that felt ripped from a Hollywood script. Paul shoved Davis right as the lightweight champion was about to speak. The room froze. Cameras swiveled, security stepped in, and the crowd erupted. It wasn't a planned part of the event, but it was pure Jake Paul, calculated chaos designed to steal the spotlight. Paul didn't throw a punch or escalate further. He simply stood there, letting the moment sink in. Later, he downplayed the incident, insisting it wasn't personal. It was just about keeping the energy high, he said, claiming Davis didn't take it personally either. For Paul, it was a strategic move to keep the focus on their potential fight, a matchup that had been in serious negotiations but hadn't yet materialized. Those negotiations, according to sources close to both camps, were at one point on the verge of sealing the deal. The fight was targeted for November, structured as a 10-round exhibition with 3-minute rounds at 195 pounds, a weight that heavily favors Paul, who typically fights at cruiserweight, around 200 pounds, while Davis competes at lightweight, around 135 pounds. The significant size difference has been a major point of contention, with critics arguing that it makes the fight inherently unfair. A good big guy beats a great little guy, as the old boxing adage goes, and many see this as a classic case. Davis, even if he bulks up, would be giving up significant size and reach, a challenge that could overshadow his technical brilliance and punching power. The push at the press conference wasn't the first time Paul and Davis had crossed paths. Earlier, Paul had been angling for a fight with Davis, capitalizing on his growing reputation in the boxing world. After his high-profile win over Mike Tyson, Paul's stock as a fighter rose, not necessarily because of his technical prowess but due to the massive attention and revenue his fights generate. Top boxers, who once dismissed him as a gimmick, began to take notice. Paul's ability to draw eyes to the ring has made him a lucrative opponent, even for elite fighters like Davis. The financial incentive is undeniable. Paul's fights are big business, and a matchup with Davis could be one of the biggest paydays of the year. However, the path to this fight has been anything but straightforward. Davis's recent performance against Roach Jr. complicated matters. In a fight that ended in a majority decision draw, Davis struggled, even going down to a knee in the 9th round. Many observers felt he should have lost, and the performance raised questions about his current form. The draw forced Davis into a rematch with Roach, scheduled for August 16th in Las Vegas, putting any plans for a Paul fight on hold. Paul, never one to mince words, didn't hide his lack of surprise at Davis's struggles. In an interview with Ariel Helwani, he said, "I never thought Tank was that good, to be honest. It would just take the right boxer to tear him apart." Paul pointed to what he sees as holes in Davis's game, vulnerabilities that Roach exploited and that he believes he could capitalize on in a potential fight. The idea of a Paul Davis fight has drawn sharp criticism from some corners of the boxing world, particularly from fighters who see Paul as an outsider disrespecting the sport. Shakur Stevenson, a highly skilled lightweight who has been campaigning for a fight with Davis, was particularly vocal. In an interview with Fight Hub TV, Stevenson called the potential matchup a disrespect to boxing. "Tank disrespects the sport if he chooses to fight Jake Paul instead of me," Stevenson said. "I'm the best boxer in the sport. If he says I'm not who I say I am, come prove it." For Stevenson, a fight with Paul represents a step backward for Davis, a distraction from facing top-tier competition in meaningful, sanctioned bouts. Stevenson's frustration is palpable. He's been chasing a legacy-defining fight with Davis, and the idea of Davis opting for a spectacle with Paul feels like a slap in the face. Fans, too, have been divided. Social media has been ablaze with opinions, many of them critical of Paul. "No one wants to see an exhibition," one fan posted on X. Another pointed out Paul's pattern of fighting smaller or older opponents, Jake always fighting smaller or old dudes. The weight disparity is a recurring theme, with some noting that Davis walks around at about 140 pounds while Paul wants to fight at 195. Bro fighting people who walk around 75 pounds lighter than him, one user commented. Others referenced Paul's loss to Tommy Fury, a boxer closer to his size, as evidence that he struggles against opponents who can match his physicality. Bro actually lost to Tommy, by the way, another fan remarked, reminding everyone of Paul's defeat in 2023. Despite the skepticism, Paul has his defenders, and the narrative around him is shifting. Hall of Famer Roy Jones Jr. offered a surprisingly supportive take in an interview with Prime Casino. While stopping short of guaranteeing Paul would win a world title, Jones argued that Paul is positioning himself for a legitimate shot. The whole purpose behind the fight is creating the argument for Jake Paul to fight for a world title, Jones said. He's creating that argument, and eventually, if he keeps going, he'll get a shot. Jones highlighted Paul's punching power as a key asset, noting that he has the power to win anything and could end a fight with a single punch. It's a bold endorsement from a boxing legend, and it underscores the growing legitimacy of Paul's campaign, even if his path remains unconventional. Paul's upcoming fight against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. on June 28, 2025, at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, is seen as a critical test. Chavez Jr., a former world champion and the son of boxing icon Julio Cesar Chavez, brings a wealth of experience, even if he's past his prime. A win here would be Paul's most significant achievement to date, silencing some of his critics and bolstering his case for bigger fights. The bout, co-promoted by MVP Promotions and Golden Boy Promotions, is expected to draw significant attention, especially given Chavez's name recognition. For Paul, it's a chance to prove he's more than a YouTuber. He's a fighter who can hang with established names. The Chavez fight also ties into Paul's broader strategy. He's been deliberate in his matchmaking, choosing opponents who elevate his profile while still being winnable. His win over Anderson Silva, a former UFC champion, was a turning point, showing he could compete with seasoned fighters. Beating Chavez, who has faced top-tier competition like Canelo Alvarez, would be another step toward legitimacy. Paul's camp is already looking beyond Chavez, with Davis as the primary target. If Davis can defeat Roach in their rematch, negotiations for a Paul fight could resume in earnest, potentially leading to a blockbuster event before the end of 2025. The size disparity remains a sticking point. Paul has agreed to cut to 195 pounds for the potential Davis fight, but even that concession doesn't fully bridge the gap. Davis, a natural lightweight, would need to bulk up significantly, a process that could sap his speed and power, two of his greatest assets. Paul, meanwhile, benefits from his natural cruiserweight frame, which gives him a significant edge in reach and durability. Critics argue that this makes the fight more about spectacle than sport, a criticism Paul has faced throughout his career. Yet Paul insists the fight would follow full boxing rules, 10 3-minute rounds with no special conditions, to counter accusations of it being a gimmick match. Davis's own motivations add another layer of intrigue. In a candid moment on the Safe Place podcast, he was asked about his dream fight. His answer, me versus Floyd Mayweather. It was a surprising choice, given their history. Mayweather discovered and promoted Davis early in his career, but their relationship deteriorated, culminating in a split in 2022. The reasons remain murky, but Davis's choice of Mayweather as his dream opponent suggests unresolved feelings, perhaps a mix of respect and a desire to prove himself against his former mentor. A fight with Mayweather is unlikely, given Floyd's retirement from professional boxing, but it highlights Davis's hunger for legacy-defining moments. A fight with Paul, while lucrative, might not carry the same weight in terms of legacy, which could explain Davis's hesitation. For Paul, the fight is about more than money, it's about proving a point. He's been vocal about his belief that Davis isn't as invincible as his reputation suggests. I always saw so many holes in his game, Paul told Helwani, referencing Davis's draw with Roach. Paul believes he can exploit those weaknesses, using his size, activity, and fearlessness to overwhelm Davis. Whether he can actually pull it off is another question, but his confidence is unwavering. He's also been strategic in keeping the conversation alive, using moments like the press conference shove to ensure the boxing world keeps talking about him and Davis. The broader context of Paul's career adds weight to this potential matchup. He's no longer just a novelty act. His fights have drawn massive audiences, and his promotional savvy has forced even the most skeptical boxers to take him seriously. He's been linked to other big names, including Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua, and Badou Jack, though some of those discussions have fizzled out. His near-miss with Canelo, who signed a 4-fight deal with Turki Alashik, was a reminder of how close Paul has come to landing elite opponents. The Davis fight, if it happens, would be another step towards silencing doubters who still see him as a YouTuber playing boxer. Davis, meanwhile, is at a crossroads. The draw with Roach exposed vulnerabilities, and his rematch will be a chance to reassert his dominance. A strong performance could set the stage for a Paul fight, but a loss or another lackluster showing could damage his bargaining power. For Davis, the Paul fight offers a massive payday but also risks further criticism from purists who see it as a sellout. Stevenson's comments reflect a sentiment shared by many in the boxing community. Davis should be fighting top boxers, not entertainers. Yet the allure of a Paul fight, both financially and in terms of attention, is hard to ignore. The boxing world is no stranger to controversial matchups, and Paul versus Davis would fit right in. It's a fight that divides fans, with some seeing it as a circus and others as a fascinating clash of styles and personalities. If it happens, it's sure to be one of the most watched events of the year, drawing casual viewers and hardcore fans alike. Paul's ability to generate buzz, combined with Davis's star power, would make it a cultural moment as much as a sporting one. Whether it's a step forward for boxing or a step too far remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis have the world's attention, and they're not letting go anytime soon.